What's up, everybody? It's Realistic, and I'm doing another tutorial for SoundOracle.net. And in this video, I'm going to be going over Auto-Tune. This is a basic guide to how Auto-Tune works, and I'm going to be talking about the different parameters inside of the Auto-Tune software. And I'm going to answer questions like, what does the Retune knob do, and what's humanizing, and what should I set the key to my song to, and how do I figure out what the key of my song is? So I'm going to answer all those questions and more, and we're going to dive in, so let's get to it. All right, so we're going to go over Auto-Tune today and talk about the parameters and the features on this. I'm using Pro Tools, but this will work in any DAW as long as you have Auto-Tune. And I'm going to be using the Antares version of Auto-Tune since it's the original, it's the classic one, and it's the most famous and used ones. I know there's a lot of knockoff ones. DAWs have them, Waves has them, but we're going to focus on the Antares one since it is the original and the most used one. So like I always say, do this along with me if you're capable of it. That way you'll retain it better than trying to remember it for later. So what is Auto-Tune? Well, Auto-Tune is designed to automatically analyze audio as it passes through this plugin right here. All right. And then what it will do is it will tune the notes up or down to the nearest note as everything passes through it. So that's basically what it's going to do. So if we are in what we're already set at, the key of E minor. So if they sing an E flat, if it's closer to E, then it will tune it up to E. But if it's closer to D, then it's going to tune it down to D. And it's going to do that automatically. So that's basically the gist of what Auto-Tune is going to do. So now let's talk about the features inside of it. So the first thing that we got is our input type, and we got a couple different input types. Basically what this is it helps Auto-Tune focus on a certain frequency range or a different type of vocal. So obviously, soprano is going to be for high or female vocals. Also, like falsetto vocals. So you think about what like Swae Lee and Travis Scott do sometimes when they do their falsetto. This is what you'd probably want to use for that, the soprano. Alto, tenor are going to be for normal voices. Most generally going to be for most male vocals. Like a Drake kind of sound is going to be through here. A Kanye, a T-Pain sound is going to be through there. Low male, that's going to be for more of that Barry White, low, deep sounding, or if you got somebody that's doing like some doo-wop stuff in the background. And then, of course, we have instruments, and this is going to be more for monophonic instruments, not so much instruments that play chords like guitars and pianos, but more things like violins and flutes and bass lines and stuff like that. And so that's what that's going to do, and it's going to be the same thing as far as choosing what it's going to correct. This is a female vocal that I got right here. And so this right here, I'm going to stay on soprano. All right, so next we have our tracking. We have our relax or choosy. I always leave it at 50%. I've never had an issue of having it differently, but this is just for when you're recording with Auto-Tune, and it's just going to choose as far as what's it picking up. So relax going to pick up everything, and that includes like room noise and foot movement going on. And then choosy is going to be really just trying to focus on the audio signal coming through, whether that's a voice or a violin or something. So let's go over scale. Now, scale to me is the most important parameter of your Auto-Tune, and I think this is a parameter that I hear get overlooked a lot and undervalued. And you really want to set the scale and the key of the Auto-Tune to the same scale and key of your song. And that's going to be really important, because if it's the wrong key, I'll show you what that sounds like here. I got one of these loops here that I loaded up from Vocane. It's a sound pack that SoundOracle and I made together, available at SoundOracle.net. So check this out. This is supposed to be an E minor, and I'll hit play.
I say bye.
Now, if it was in a different key, let's check this out.
I say bye.
Obviously, that's going to be wrong. Now, when you open up Auto-Tune, it's going to automatically be in C chromatic, and that's the most popular one that people use because it's the setting and it just has all the notes. So I'll hit play.
I say bye. Say bye.
But you see that that doesn't sound as accurate as the key of the song. And the reason why is one thing that you got to consider is when you have it in chromatic, you're giving auto-tune 12 different choices for notes versus if you actually have it set to a scale, it only has 7 different notes to choose from. So it lessens the odds of it being the wrong note. Another thing to consider is, let's say that we have a song that's in A minor. So we have all of these notes right here in the key of A minor, right? There's no sharps, there's no flats, but if we're in a chromatic scale, the problem with it is if a singer is trying to sing the note A, but let's say that they're just a little bit flat and they end up singing A flat. If the song is in A minor and every time that they just slightly off and it tunes it to A flat, you're going to always have this wrong note in there. So if it's actually to the right scale, in order to sing the wrong note, they'd have to sing past A flat and then it would hit a G in order for it to be a wrong note, versus if they just sing slightly on A flat, it's just going to bring it right down to A. So it's a very important one to make sure that you got it. And if you're wondering like how you can figure out the key, a lot of times for me, the artists or musicians come in and they already know what scale that they're playing in, or a lot of professional beat makers and producers that have been doing this for a long time, they'll include the key right into the title of the file. But that's not always the case. You get a lot of people sometimes that aren't that experienced and sometimes just don't know what the key is, and now you're stuck with a beat and you're not sure. So there's a couple different things that you can do. One thing that you can do is you can load up a piano keyboard and you can play along with the beat. You can play different scales, start A minor, B minor, C minor, D minor, E minor. Just keep going until you figure it out. And then once you find the scale that fits within the beat, you can go that route. Another route that people will do is they'll set the auto tune to full retune speed and they'll just start going through until it sounds good.
I say bye.
Obviously you can hear that that's not the key of the song, so then you just keep moving on.
I say bye. I say bye. I say bye. I say bye.
And now we found what sounds actually pretty good there, because all the other ones sounded bad, and now we figured it out that this is going to be most likely the key of the song. Another thing that people can do is there's softwares that you can get, there's plugins, there's things online where you can just upload the track and it will tell you for you. There's this one that I got from Hornet right here, and you just load it on. Sometimes it's accurate, sometimes it's not. It's hit or miss. So if you hit, but when it works, it's really nice and it tells you the likelihood of what it is. So I got the beat loaded up, I hit play.
I say bye. I say bye.
So it's analyzed that most likely the key of this song is going to be E minor, 65% chance. That is correct in this case. It is E minor, so it's a nice plugin when it works. I've had it before though where I've set it up and that definitely wasn't the key. But anyways, it's a cool plugin. You just Google Hornet key detector and it pops up. It's like a $10 plugin, so it's not too bad. It's a good thing, and they always have sales going on for it as well. All right, so now let's move on to the next parameter. I would say the second most important parameter is the retune speed. This is the parameter that's going to decide of how our auto-tune sounds, whether it's going to sound more natural or if it's going to sound more robotic, like that classic auto-tune sound we've been hearing all over the radio for the past decade and a half. So what Retune does is it sets how fast auto-tune will tune a note. So setting it to a very fast time will remove any variations in pitch, which gives it a more robotic sound, and it takes away a little bit of that human element. And so it can give you some unnatural results, but that's also the effect that a lot of people go for, because that's the effect that you hear with Future or Kanye or Swae Lee or Travis Scott or, of course, T-Pain, who really made it famous. So when you set it to faster, like to 0, you're going to get more of that effect.
I say bye. I say bye.
Hear how she sounds like a robot versus if we slow this down a little bit.
I say bye. I say bye. I,
she sounds a little bit more natural. And then if we just meet in the middle here,
I say bye.
we get the auto-tune sound and quality there without it going too far. So, you got to use your best judgment on what the song calls for, because sometimes I'm doing a song and it's more of a Swae Lee or Travis Scott sound. I got to be a little bit more aggressive with the retune. I got to be between 10 and 0, right? But if I'm doing a song that's more like an Ariana Grande or a Rihanna type song, I'm going to be a little bit more in the middle here, like a 20 or a 30, to kind of give it the auto-tune pop effect without it sounding too robotic, but without it also sounding too natural. And then, of course, if I did something more like singer-songwriter, I'm either going to use pitch correction software like Melodyne or really slow down on the retune.
I say bye.
So for this song right here, I chose 20. This was what I felt was the best one to really give the effect that I was going for on that one. All right, so now let's go to the next parameter called Humanize. I feel like this is a parameter that gets overlooked a lot, and a lot of it's due to people not really understanding what Humanize does. And so what it does is it allows for sustained notes to have a slower retune speed than shorter notes. So the humanizing, it will help with sustained notes not sounding too tuned or sounding too processed. That will give it a little bit more of a natural feel, while the shorter notes will still have a nice fast retune speed to it. So let me show you on a sustained note what I'm talking about here. And it's a cool way to kind of give the singer a little bit more of a natural feel to it without taking away some of their voice. So I'll have it set to 0, and this will just allow auto-tune to do what it does. So you hear how it kind of wobbles the sustained note a little bit, versus if I bump this up. And what I'm really listening to is this part. Right. So let's check that out again here going into it. And then let's lead into it where we got some short notes, and we'll hear that it's not too affected. Right? And then I'll take this away. So just a little bit more forgiving on the held out notes. And usually when I'm doing something like an Ariana Grande or Rihanna type vocal, like I was going for on this one, I'll have it usually set to where the retune is set to 20 and Humanize is set to 20 as well. That way I'm getting that auto-tune sound. It sounds modern, it sounds pop, it sounds edgy with a little bit of electronic feel to it, but it's still holding true to some of their held out sustained notes a little bit there. All right, so now let's go on to this new feature that Autotune added a few years back when they released Autotune 8. And this is Flex Tune, and it's really cool because it allows you to set the rate at which Autotune corrects pitch away from the scaled notes. And so this will allow singers a little bit more freedom to exercise their vocal creativity while still providing the quality and pitch correction standard that we've come accustomed to with Autotune. We have a few options here. Let me zoom in here. We have Classic, we have Flex Tune, and we have None. So when it's set to None, it's just not going to do anything, right? When it's set to Classic, though, we're going to have what Autotune has always done, and it's going to apply pitch correction to every note with the degree and speed based on the tracking and retune speed and humanized controls, right? So we're already used to that. But if we set it to Flex Tune and get a little bit more aggressive with that, what we're going to do is we'll be able to configure the pitch correction so that only the notes close to the scale center gets the correction applied. Other elements of the singer's performance, like pitch variations, melisma, things with dealing with vibrato, they're going to be left untouched and unaltered. So it's just things that give you a little bit more of a natural tone to it. So let's check out the Flex Tune here.
I say bye, I say bye, I say bye, say bye, say bye, say bye,
So when she says ba, that's where I'm really hearing the flex tune work its magic there. So it's allowing her to have a little bit more flexibility singing in between notes and being able to alter in between notes a little bit.
C'est pas, c'est pas, c'est pas, c'est pas, c'est pas, c'est pas, c'est pas.
So these parameters right here are meant more to help the singer sound more natural and get away from the robotic sound, which is really cool because it allows a lot more flexibility and allows you to use autotune in more applications than you normally would if these weren't options. All right, so now let's go over our natural vibrato. What is this? This is something that I don't use a lot, but if you're interested in knowing what it does, I'll tell you what it does. This is independent towards your pitch settings, and it's used basically to tame the natural vibrato of a performance. You can either tame it or you can add more to it. If it's set to 0, how it already is to the default setting, it's not going to affect the original vibrato at all. But if you do things where you can adjust it here, I'll show you what it sounds like. To me, I usually find it sounding kind of bad, whether you're taking it out or adding it, so I don't use it a lot, but I'll show you what it sounds like. When we put it at minimum, it's going to take all the life out of her voice.
I sais pas, I sais pas, I sais pas,
So when we're taking that out, we're not only losing some of the human equality, but we're losing it in a bad way because a lot of times singers will use vibrato to stay on pitch and it allows them to alter. And when we take that away, she sounds like she's off pitch.
I sais pas, I sais pas,
It sounds much better when we have the vibrato in there. Now, if we maximize it, then we can start using things like our create vibrato here, and we can set whether we want the vibrato to be a different shape, whether it's a sine or a square, and then we can affect the different settings on here.
I sais pas, 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 I.
And what some of these parameters are doing, we're choosing the rate at which the vibrato is going to ring out.
I sais pas.
Right, and then we're going to choose the format, which is whether it's going to sound more male or female.
I sais pas, I sais pas.
And then we have our pitch amount, and then we also have amplitude, volume, stuff like that. So anyways, that's what the natural vibrato is going to do. Like I said, I don't use that a lot. I haven't found much need for it, but it's there if you want to be able to affect the vibrato. So speaking of vibrato, we have another parameter here. Targeting ignores vibrato. And what happens is when we turn this on, it can help auto-tune and what it's trying to tune and what it's trying to ignore. So let's say we have a vocal and it has a lot of vibrato on there. A lot of times auto-tune will make it sound bubbly and kind of poppy. Not poppy in the sense of genre, but there'll be a lot of like clicks and pops and bubbly sound on the vocal, and this can help to avoid it a little bit because what it's going to do is it's going to allow the lead vocal here to have the natural vibrato, and it's going to ignore the auto-tune's going to ignore the natural vibrato without trying to correct that. So she's got a little bit of that here at the end of the song, so let's check that out here.
I
And we'll check out a little bit of her vibrato over here.
C'est pas, c'est pas, c'est pas, c'est pas, c'est pas.
So it just smooths it out a little bit and allows that to pass through so she can have a little bit more of a natural sound. And like I said, a lot of these parameters within this auto-tune software is to help things sound a little bit more natural and to get away from the robotic sound sometimes. And sometimes the robotic sound is exactly what the recipe calls for, and that's what you got to go with. And sometimes the song calls for a little bit more of a natural sound, so it's nice that the options are there. All right, the last thing I want to talk about is probably the parameter that's the most fun to use, and it's the keyboard down here. Why is this keyboard down here? It's like, what's the purpose of it? Well, there's two things. One thing that you can do is if it were set here, we can choose what notes that we want to have right here within the scale, right? So it's kind of cool if you wanted to make a song, and let's say that we have a minor scale, right? It's not only minor, it's harmonic minor. So we want to take away some of the notes in here. So then we can, take away D and then add D sharp. And now we have E harmonic minor, and it's a whole different scale here. Right, so that's one thing that you can do with it. Another thing that you can do is you can choose target notes via MIDI. And this is a lot of fun because what you do is once that's selected and you pull up a MIDI track, you can choose like any MIDI device that you want. Just make sure that the output is routed. So I have my lead vocal and I have auto-tune put in channel 1. Now we got MIDI. And so what it's going to do is it's going to play the melody, or in this case, the chords of my MIDI device, and it's going to tune this vocal to that. And so it's kind of cool. It can get unpredictable sounds sometimes, which can be exactly what your song calls for, a little unpredictability.
I say bo, I say bo, I say bo, oh, 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 I say bo.
Right? And then another thing that you can do is you can play melodies instead of chords, and then it will play it to the melodies. Right? So it gets you a lot of really cool sounds in there sometimes. And this is an effect that if you're kind of going for some really cool sound design thing or something that's like a really unique sound, like you think about the pop drops that we're hearing in a lot of music right now, like Zed or Clean Bandits or some of their music of where we got the chorus and it's a really catchy chorus, and then all of a sudden the beat just drops and the whole vocal is all chopped up and mangled. This is an effect where you can add something like that to get a cool, unique effect that doesn't sound like anybody else and kind of makes it sound more like an instrument, which is really cool. And that's something that I did with Vocane when I made a lot of the loops, is sometimes I would pull this up and just play MIDI chords right in there and get a whole new sound. So it's really cool. So the last thing that I wanted to touch on with auto-tune is I just wanted to bring you up to speed with another version that Anteri sells as well. It's a lighter version and it's much more affordable. So we have our full version here, and we can see already it's a lot bigger. We have a lot more choices, but we have another version right here, the auto-tune effects. And this is really nice because it allows you to get some of the effects that you want, like that Kanye West, Swae Lee, Future, T-Pain sound that you want to go for. And this really allows you to be able to do that. Or also you can use it to get some of that light sound that we had talked about for either singer-songwriters or the in-between for Ariana and Rihanna kind of sound. So you see we have the most important parameters that we need. We have our key, our scale, we have our voice type, we have our retune speed, and we have our humanize. So we just lose a couple things like targeting notes via MIDI, natural vibrato, and our flex tune abilities, and then some of the cool stuff that we can do as far as the piano and stuff like that. But this is really cool because it's much more affordable. It's about $100, but a lot of times it goes on sale, so you can usually get it for half of that. So a lot of times, just be on the lookout. You can find this for $50 and it can still give you the same kind of results that you're looking for. I'll play it for you so you can hear that we're getting the same thing here.
I say ba, I say ba, I.
So you see we get the same exact effect there at a fraction of the price. Hopefully this helps you out as far as figuring out what's the best way to go, what the parameters do, and now you can fully get the best use out of auto-tune. And if you like these loops that I was using in here, we got a whole pack of loops that are just like this, ones that sound really crazy. It's called Vocane. It's on SoundOracle.net. I definitely recommend checking that out. It's definitely gets your beats to sound really cool, give it some unique stuff, and who doesn't like vocal samples to chop up? But anyway, anyways, I hope this tutorial was useful for you and you now have a better understanding of auto-tune. So I'm hoping that you got a lot out of this tutorial today. Hopefully there's some information that was useful. If you're getting a lot out of this but you want to see more, please feel free to comment below. Let us know what kind of tutorials that you want to see in the future, and Oracle and I can definitely make that happen. We're always trying to find the content that you want to see. If you're liking what you're hearing from me, you can find me everywhere on social media at Realistic Productions. You can find me at the web, realisticproductions.net. You can find my man SoundOracle everywhere at SoundOracle. And if you're looking for the best 808s, the best kicks, the best snares with the craziest loops and samples you can find on the internet right now, go to SoundOracle.net. All right, till next time.
Even when I'm